The inaugural CIF Southern Section podcast continues, and we've got the commissioner here with us, Rob Wigod, to talk about the state of the Southern Section. Thanks for making the time this week and all the rest to come.
Well, I appreciate it, Sam. And, we're making history today. But first and foremost, congratulations to you on the new addition to your family.
Yeah.
And, shows the dedication to your craft that on Monday, a new arrival, and 3 days later, you're sitting here in the office.
She was very cooperative right from the start. Decided to be born on a Monday so that everything else would just fall into place. But I appreciate the
congratulations
from you.
to you.
Thank you very much.
You got it.
Well, let's start off talking about one of the big topics that has come out this week in the Southern Section. That has to do with Mission Viejo High School. I mentioned it earlier in the podcast. For those of you who haven't heard, they're going to be forfeiting 4 games or have forfeited 4 games for use of an ineligible player. First off, for me personally, I always think that the teams that do this should be applauded for adhering to the rules and doing things correctly because it's the honor system.
It's very, very unfortunate. We do commend Mission Viejo High School. They self-reported the violations. They understand the rules. They understand that, unfortunately, an oversight, which no one, could anticipate. And so, we have to deal with that and work together with the member school, which we did. Their administration was very forthcoming in explaining the situation. And, we have to now try to move forward. And, I guess sometimes the timing of these kinds of cases can be really, really hard. In this particular one, Mission Viejo still sort of has their goals in sight. It didn't affect their league standings or any league games that they had to forfeit, and so they still have, their ability to go for their league championship. And I think our poll voters, respect the on-field results. So I don't anticipate in looking at this week's poll that they fell any, they didn't fall at all in our polls. So. Again, it's a terrible, terrible blow to them and their school, their community, their program. They still have some things in front of them for this season that, I think are still there for them. They
absolutely do. And it kind of brings up the topic which you've been addressing over the last couple of years. You've been asking the schools what can be done better from an enforcement perspective and dealing with the, some would say it's a transfer epidemic. Some would just say it's the reality. You put out a memo earlier this week talking about how you want to address the way schools have to basically work with transfers and what information needs to be made available. Let people know what you're looking for from the office here.
We had asked our section, we surveyed them on our current transfer rules, asking whether they believed we should make some adjustments, we should start exploring what we have. Is it adequate? Is it working? Is it not? I think it's important for us to always be reaching out and get a sense of where our section is and our membership is, since they make the rules, which people may not realize, but it is the schools that make the rules. So we did that through the month of August and got the results back. And one of the things that a lot of the comments that were made, we gave them opportunities to write comments, was about the valid residence change and the rules as it relates to valid residence change. And they've been around a long time. The valid residence change rule has probably been part of CIF Southern Section and statewide probably since we started 105 years ago. So the concept of a family moving from one location to another, new job, new house, whatever the situation, then the student should be eligible. Why not? And that's the basis for the rule. But we know in a section like ours that there are different permutations that present themselves. And so we're trying to standardize it, make a valid residence change, specific requirements, specific documents, specific things that families would need to produce to make sure, verified, certified, that there was a valid residence change. And I think that's a positive step for us. And hopefully, again, putting everyone on the same plane.
I think at the end of the day, when you're looking at this, there's kind of 2 schools of thought. One is everything should be done in the best interest of the individual student. If they feel they're better off at school A than school B, you want to make it as easy for them as possible. The other line of thought is you want things to be as fair for everyone across the board. And if it hurts an individual student in a particular situation, then you just want it to be fair. In a perfect world, you want both. But what, for you, is the overriding principle? Do you want students to, whatever you feel is in the best interest of your future, of your kids' future, you should be able to do that? Or, look, I've got almost 400 schools to keep an eye on here in football. I need to have a more consistent basis to put the rules in place.
It's a very good question. And I think the answer to that is we have our entire focus on students playing. That's why we're here. think sometimes people believe that, we're the barrier to students participating, and that's far from it. It's the exact opposite. Whatever decisions parents make, students make on schools they attend, we don't have a problem with it as long as it's under the rules that they make. And I think you're right. Your point about the fairness of it, making sure that everyone abides by the same standards, that's the goal. It should be the same. And again, if people want to make those choices, they have every right to make them. We just want to make sure that they're made, they're appropriate to the rules that they have to abide by, and then we go from there. But that's an ongoing process. I say all the time, we are continually striving to get better. We have to improve what we do. We have to try to move forward, make progress. And you can't do that without continually, reaching out, getting feedback from your members, and looking for the best ways to keep changing and adapting, because society changes and our world changes and high school athletics changes. And so it's very important that you try really hard to stay on top of that.
And again, just to reiterate from my perspective, this is me personally talking for all the Twitter trolls out there and everyone who likes to say, they got Mater Dei this year, they got Mission Bay, they got so-and-so. The school self-report. And it's really a great example to the students across the board, whether you're in those programs or not, that, hey, there are rules, we follow them. If we messed up or if something even unintentional happened, we're taking responsibility. And that's what you want from these coaches that are in charge of so many young men.
Well, I mentioned we're 106 years old now, and the core of this organization is it is an organization of high school principals. That's how it began, and that's how it still remains today. High school principals, entrusted with the athletics programs at their schools, entrusted with the following of, abiding by, and doing what's right by the rules. And so, we are set up in that way. That's the responsibility that our principals and administrators have. We have a responsibility, an obligation, and a desire to work with them and help them in any way and support them in any way we can. And that's how it works. There are times, unfortunately, where it isn't self-reported because they were not aware of it. It may come to our office. It may come to them from another source where they do become aware of it. But you're right. The primary issues and situations that we deal with are self-reported, and that speaks to the character and the integrity of our schools and our principals and our athletic directors who even when it hurts, even when it's difficult to absorb and can have an impact that isn't a positive impact, they still understand their responsibility. They understand what lessons they're teaching by having integrity and honesty and self-reporting when they do.
Rob Wigod, Commissioner of the CIF-SOUTHERN section, with us here on our inaugural podcast. Let's move on to some happier topics. You had the State of the Southern section talking about attendance, and give us the brief overview of what you're letting people know in your State of the section.
The Southern Section Council met last week, and I have an opportunity to speak to every league is represented at that meeting. So we have approximately 88 leagues and a few other members. So it's a great opportunity to be able to get a message out. So what I wanted to make sure and reinforce to our schools was that we are partners in this relationship, and it also extends to our financial relationship. When we have playoff revenues and championship revenues, those are shared by our member schools and by our organization. So people may not know, we pay all expenses for playoff competition, and once the expenses are paid for, then there's a split 60-40 between the schools involved and the section office. Our attendance has been slipping a little bit over the last 3 years. That affects our schools directly, because in this revenue that we return, we've had years where we return $1.4 million back to our member schools. Very, very important revenues that they can use for whatever purpose they wish. Well, when we're not being able to share as much revenue with them, then it affects them, and then it certainly affects our bottom line as well. And so we've been working on some changes in expenses, saving different things each year. We save $25,000 without printing tickets anymore. We have a company does it for us as part of an agreement. We don't do printed championship programs anymore. That saved us about $30,000. We don't go to the Honda Center anymore for basketball. They were charging us $85,000 a year for one day. Now we go to a different venue where it's much less expensive. But those are yearly things. They happen once. And if this attendance continues to decline, we're going to have to look for ways to increase our revenue so that we can still stay financially solvent. We're in a great financial situation. But I thought it was important to at least alert the section of the importance of playoff attendance, and to see, we have a great product. We have an outstanding product. And, we need to help at the grassroots level in our schools, our communities. Come out and see the games. Come out and see these young student athletes, some of the future stars of tomorrow, and some of the future lawyers and doctors and teachers and accountants and university presidents of the future competing in high school athletics. So I just thought it was important to sort of check in with the section and kind of let them know where we are, and that we needed to continue to work together and see if we could make the trend of the attendance start to trend up.
One of those playoff brackets that is coming out shortly that we're hoping will be very well attended, girls volleyball pairing day, is coming up over the weekend. It's a new format, kind of a little closer to the way football is being done, with competitive equity being the goal, not so much being seeded by what league you're in. If you have a Long Beach Poly, so to speak, from football, you might be put in a division that you're not really ready for or is not fair to each individual program. That's going away now in volleyball. What are you looking forward to most about pairing day coming up?
Well, pairing day is always exciting, and we'll be working on the bracketing. The entries will be due tomorrow. We'll be working on it pretty much 24/7 from there before we release on Saturday. It's like delivering the Christmas present. Some people, are really excited to unwrap it. Some people feel like Scrooge has arrived at their front door. But it's an exciting time for us. What we're doing this particular year in volleyball for the first time for girls is we're taking divisions 1 and 2 at the start of the season based on their previous 2 years of performance. And at the end of this current regular season, we're going to identify the top 16 teams from this particular season that's just finishing. And they will be Division 1. The other schools that were in that grouping of Divisions 1 and 2 when the season started will then become Division 2. And then we have a total of 9 divisions. They are set up by power rankings. They're set up by individual school, how strong your program is over the last 2 years. And we've been very successful with this competitive equity model across a broad spectrum of sports, but we're still trying to improve it. We're still trying to make it better and incorporate as much information as we can so that the right teams are in the right place. And so we've done this in water polo. We've done this in basketball with our open division. Volleyball is going to take a crack at it this year, where we're going to actually involve the current regular season as well, and make sure that we, at the top especially, that we have an appropriate grouping of schools who can compete with each other. Don't know who's going to win. Doesn't mean if you're in that division, every single team is a potential champion. But you have a chance, and that's the idea. You have a chance to compete. That's what we want to do.
Is that a wrinkle you foresee for football, men's basketball, or football in particular? You've taken the last 2 years, you've divvied the teams into different divisions, but they can't move up and down one division in the current season. You got to wait till next year, see how you've done. And as we all know, kids graduate, kids transfer, things change. Maybe a team that was really strong Division II in 1 year is going to be really weak in Division I the next. Is that a change you think will be made?
I do. And we have been very clear about that. I think when we started with a competitive equity model, we said this is a breathing, growing, learning, we're going to keep moving it forward. It wasn't what you see in year 1 might be what you see in year 4 or year 5. So we're continually looking at revising things, tweaking things, working with we have coaches advisory committees in all of our sports. They help us. They're the eyes and ears of our section. They're in the trenches and the front lines every day. So we work with them a lot on playoff divisions. And so we're going to keep, exploring different options that include more information, more accurate and relevant information like the current season. And so there's ways to do that, and we're working towards it. And we've been, hopefully, people realize that we are working on that, and hope to keep doing it. Like I said, open division basketball kind of started it. Water polo picked it up. Now we're going to have girls and boys volleyball pick it up. And football, I think, is close because we can record the current regular season data in a sport like football so much easier than the other sports with just the 1 game a week and only 10 total games for the season. You're trying to get 35 volleyball matches entered into a computer by every single school in our section for every single game, and it all has to be done, by the last day of the regular season. That's a little tougher job. And our culture at our schools has to start embracing that idea that that's what they would need to do. But in the football world, as we head into week 10, we would probably have every single score from week 9. And so we could get week 10 done by that last day of the regular season and then make those new rankings and new divisions possible in a sport like football, maybe easier than some others. So that might be the next one, and of course there'll be a lot of attention paid to that. And we're working towards trying to make that happen.
Rob Wigod, Commissioner of the Southern Section. Last one for you. Two teams that are not leaving the top division anytime soon will go head-to-head this weekend. Mater Dei versus St. John Bosco. Huge game nationally, statewide, and especially for the section.
Yeah.
Tell us your thoughts on this matchup and what it means for the Southern Section to have the two best teams in the country going head-to-head Friday.
It's going to be incredible. You'll be there calling it play-by-play as you always do, you and JJ, and it'll be great to have you. It is two super outstanding teams, and each year different stories develop and different things happen. But we have seen already that these two teams are really outstanding in a lot of different ways with a lot of great players. So they get a chance to go at each other. It'll be exciting. It'll be the high level of play out there on the field. A lot of future college players and maybe even some NFL players are going to be out there running around. And it's a great rivalry. They've knocked each other off. They've competed at the highest level against each other. So we're proud of that. We're proud of like I said earlier, we're very proud of our product. Not just at the very top, but all the way through. We believe in a section as large as ours. There's great competition at a variety of different levels. It hopefully gives the student athletes an opportunity to pursue their dreams and achieve their goals. And we just feel that a section like ours has a lot to be proud of, and some of the best and brightest that we have will certainly be on display tomorrow night down in Santa Ana, and we'll look forward to seeing how it plays out on the field.
Rob Wigod, Commissioner of the CIF Southern Section. Thanks so much for the time.
Thank you, Sam. Appreciate it.
Hey, thanks for watching our inaugural podcast and our conversation with Commissioner Rob Wigod. We'll be coming at you each and every week with all the ins and outs from the CIF Southern Section. Hope you'll join me on Friday night, either at the Santa Ana Bowl for Mater Dei and St. John Bosco, but if you can't see us there, make sure you're tuned in on Fox Sports Prime Ticket.